Good afternoon everyone, thank you very much for tuning into my latest video, I very much appreciate it. Thank you for everyone that continues to obviously comment and likes and shares my videos, I really appreciate it. So I'm sure you'll all agree that things just seem to be, it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And the anger doesn't seem to be boiling down at all, and I'm not saying it shouldn't. However, we obviously need to try and manage triggers a wee bit better, and I want to try and see videos like this. This is stuff that people need to know about how people that govern countries, exactly how they operate and how they manufacture or engineer the consent from us to then build the type of world or the type of society that they want. And when you start reading, because it's important that we know how they do that, because there's nothing complicated about it. In fact, as I mentioned in one of my last videos, it's very, very simple. The book on propaganda is to keep it very, very simple, and that is exactly what they do. And they all know they've got a common goal, and I mean, I've said many times that secret societies run this world, but they don't actually like each other, a lot of them actually, they despise each other, in fact. However, they know that they've got a common goal, there's a common agenda to obviously take over this world and create a one world society, because if they don't do that and work together, then we'll start working together and we'll overthrow it. So we need to start taking a sort of leaf out of their book, because like I say, they might not like each other, but they work together and for the greater common goal that they've got, which is obviously one world government that will be divvied up between them, and we'll be the subjects of that. Now, it doesn't have to go like that, but the way things are obviously panning out here in the UK at the moment, it's that's the way it's going. And when you start reading through the techniques of divide and rule and Hegelian dialect and things like that, and you'll see that these very techniques are still being used in this country and other countries as well, but especially in this one at the moment. And they have been since obviously March 2020. That was when the Great Divide did start to happen, because there was two types of people. The vast majority of people were looking at it and saying, right, well, we need to do what that's telling us to do. And then there was a small minority of people that were kind of saying, well, hold on a second, we've been doing what this has been telling us to do for a very long time and nothing's getting any better, so maybe I'm going to look at other things. And that's what some of us did. We looked at doctors who were being accused of not being real doctors by the sheeple at the time, for having a different opinion that wasn't necessarily being agreed with on the television. Now, there was many people, I had friends of mine that I haven't spoke to since it, and that's obviously me. That's I'm partly guilty for that. I'm partly responsible for that, and that's the thing as well. We obviously need to, even though we might not like a lot of these people that are coming in, not that we don't like them, we might not like that they are coming in, we still obviously need to say, right, well, we've got a common enemy here, and if we don't start working together and putting all these differences behind us, or beside us for the moment, then their system's going to come to fruition. Now, when it comes to obviously divide and rule, the only way they can have their divide and rule is if we don't get control of our own minds. And that's what happened during COVID, as I was talking about there. And many like friends that I'd known for a long time, they'd went their separate ways, and it all came down to the fact that people didn't want to hear an alternative view of information. And if you can control the information and have a group of people, or the vast majority of people, that don't want to hear it, then the chances are you're going to get your synthesis out of that, because it is Hegelian dialect. It's like thesis, antithesis equals synthesis. It's like the idea of two completely opposing ideologies, if you like, can then clash up against each other and bring out something new for them. And if you look at that, you will see that that is exactly what's happened. It's what happened during World War II. Obviously a bigger scale of it. It's the First World War to bring out the League of Nations, which was scrapped, that then became the United Nations. That was all done through that. And they've done it through individuals, really. It's been done through individuals who, as I said before, are part of secret operations, and different societies that know the common goal. Not all of them do, but but most of the big players do. And it's individuals, and I mean, there's a guy that I couldn't remember his name, like, but I tried to remember his name a couple of months ago. I did in a video and I couldn't remember, and his name just popped into a name just popped into my head the other day there, and I thought Edward Bernays, who's that again? And I googled it, and this is the guy that I was thinking about. So, Edward Bernays is known as the father of public relations. He's Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalysis guru. He is his nephew, so he would have had a fair idea of how the human mind worked, and certainly back in those days, when there wasn't as much information, there wasn't as much connection in the world, our consciousness maybe weren't as high as what it is now, although some people's would have been higher than some people's now. It was much easier for them to manipulate public perception, which did involve disinformation, when you look at the many examples of it through history, which I'll obviously touch upon. But Edward Bernays, he was, like I say, was known as the father of public relations, and that's on his headstone, I think. And he was used by people like the CIA, who, I mean, the CIA, they can take over countries for less than $15,000 even now. But back then it would have been much easier just to bring somebody like Edward Bernays in, which is what they done in, I think it was Guatemala they done it in. And they still do it now, although it's different, it's honey traps now, get leaders of countries into compromising positions, ones that maybe weren't going to sign your contracts. You then get them into a compromising position with someone they think's aged, then they find out the next day they're not aged, and before you know it, that America have took over another country. But when they brought him in, like I say, it would obviously have been a lot easier. Now, I've got a couple of things here. He worked, when he was in Latin America, overthrowing this country on behalf of the CIA with his disinformation and his moulding of public perception, thus manipulation and mind control. And by the way, Edward Bernays, before I go into this, he was a Jewish Austrian, and his family moved to America, I think it was in the 1890s. So, like the social school of engineering, that started in Frankfurt in the 1920s, so it all comes out of that area. And Edward Bernays, he didn't just work with the CIA, he worked with John D. Rockefeller, the Habsburgs, I think the Vanderbilts as well would take him on. So they're all part of the manipulation. Elite families would use this man because it's elite families that are involved in the manipulation, so they need people like this that know exactly how the mind works. That's why this is where the origin of this, well, in my opinion, the origin of the saying is, if you don't control your own mind, someone will do it for you. And it's guys like this that will do it for you, because they'll mould public opinion. And he would say that, this is just what he said here, when he described working for the CPI in Latin America. He said, there was one basic lesson I learned in the CPI, that efforts comparable to those applied by the CPI to affect the attitudes of the enemy of neutrals and people of this country could be applied with equal facility to peacetime pursuits. In other words, what could be done for a nation at war could be done for organisations and peoples in a nation at peace, which is exactly what they do. Now, the British, there's many examples of this going back. I'm going to go into them, and he also said this as well, Bernays, he said, if you can influence the leaders either with or without their conscious cooperation, you automatically influence the group with which they sway. They're using that just now. Look at England just now with Muslim leaders and Christian leaders. They're getting played off against each other. Again, it's the Hegelian dialect. And the Nazis used this. This is how the Nazis got so far. And they've also got, within their divide and rule, their principles of it, they've got their Latin sayings like facie excusa, which means act now, and basically lie later, make excuses later is the exact quote. So this has been around for a very, very long time. Now, when we're looking at examples of this, probably the best example was in India in 1857, was when it all started, if I'm not mistaken. And prior to this between the Shias and I can't remember the other side of it, it was Muslims and Hindus basically, and they apparently lived in peace, or certainly more peace than what they live in now over in that part of the world, or have done over the last century. They would have had their squabbles as everyone does, but genuinely they all got on and they helped each other out. However, when the British moved into that country, they were concerned about the Muslims and the Hindus joining up. So what they did was they got the leaders from each group, or paid people from each group, to go out and slander the other side, even though they didn't actually believe what they were saying. They were paid to do so, which created a conflict, and they're being divided and ruled in that part of the world until this bloody day. And I know you can say, oh well, India's got their country back and all the rest of it. It's just not true. And there is no borders when it comes to these elite families. It's a grand chessboard, the world. There's no borders, thus no political constraints. And this is where people can get confused. They can get very confused because they think, well, China are over there, we don't have any, the West doesn't have anything to do. In fact, we're supposed to be going to war with them soon. It doesn't work like that behind the scenes, because behind the scenes, the people that you should know their names, like there's families out there like Rothschilds, etc., that people, I know more people know about it now, but men making decisions about your life and influencing your life without you even knowing that their family existed is part of the reason why people can be divided and ruled. Now, a couple of elements of the technique involves creating, now let's see if you can recognise this, see if you recognise this is what's going on just now and what you see. I mean, get onto YouTube and you'll see it on Talk TV or GB News or whatever, whichever one you choose to watch. This is elements of the technique. This is as described on the internet. Creating or encouraging divisions among the subjects to prevent alliances that could challenge the sovereign, and distributing forces so they can overpower each other. The sovereign in this case is the state. Aiding and promoting those who are willing to cooperate with the sovereign. So that would be the left. The left, and I don't know how many there is, because even if you were on the left until a month ago, you would probably have thought, or since before the Southport tragedies, that everything's all good, I've voted for the right side. But since that, I would even say that a lot of the left are kind of wondering, well, what's actually going on here? Which is why Starmer and his group of Stasi bloody police, because that's what's going on here, chatting the door because you put a post up on Facebook, who are going out and seeding division, and they'll be paying some of these groups to go out and hold those placards up. Absolutely no doubt about it. Because they're promoting the sovereign state's agenda, regardless of what that is. They'll always fund the people that help them, and this is how they manufacture, obviously, the consent as well. But I've got to be honest, like, it's becoming blatantly obvious, but that I don't think it matters what information they put out there. A lot of people have had enough of this, and as I've heard many people say, that there was going to come a point where this agenda would rear its ugly head, and it would come in and the door would close on it, and it would be obvious to anyone that it was actually going on. And that's what I was going to say about COVID. There was a lot of people, a lot of children during COVID, and there still is now, not as many as I've just said, but on the left, that don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear about left-wing ideology that can kill millions of people, which has been done in the left's name in the past, between Stalin and Pol Pot, people like that. So, and I've said this to someone on a comment on one of my videos, it's frightening that you can't see the left is so close to that. You look at some of the transgender people that have got a sense of entitlement. I seen a video the other day there where somebody bloody badged into one. It just didn't mean to, though. The girl didn't mean to do it. She just barged into a transgender woman that was, I don't know, I didn't get into it, but whatever they done, it didn't warrant the reaction that person had given, because they've got this sense of entitlement, because they're listening to the left-wing ideology, and left-wing ideology is being pushed at the moment, because this is where they want to take us, and this is why Keir Starmer's got bloody Stasi police chapping on the bloody door of people who, I think it was filthy bastards, was it? Which, it's not a very nice thing to say, but is it worth getting the door? I mean, if you're going to start chapping the door for that, how long is it before I get a chap at the door? In fact, I can't wait for a chap at the door. I enjoy it, I do. I really do enjoy when they come to this door, which was not that long ago, for an unrelated family matter, and they weren't long in leaving. Fostering distrust and enmity between local rulers. Again, that's been happening. It's just, like I say, why would they change these techniques if it still works so well? And because we've not all of us have got a control of our own minds now, it's still working very, very well. And sometimes you've just got to admit that you were wrong to move forward. And until you can do that, you'll stagnate. Which is what we're doing as a country and a society and as humanity. We're stagnating because not nearly enough people wish to face the truth. Like I said in the last video, people like Isabel Oakeshott that are still saying, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. That's because that label, conspiracy theory, has been placed on people that have been telling the truth since the 1960s. And you, because you've listened to that, since probably the 1960s, or since you were born anyway, or growing up, whenever you started reading the news, you do not want to believe that you were on the wrong side of that. Well, you were, and many other people are as well. But are you worried about a label, conspiracy theory, which again the documents on the paperclip video, go and check it, and you'll see that this information or disinformation or misinformation, whatever one they choose to use, is put out there, and it's done to place labels on people so that, because no one wants to be accused of being a conspiracy theorist because of the way they portray it. They portray a conspiracy as somebody that wears tinfoil wearing hats, which is actually quite funny because that's done to stop frequencies hitting the brain, which is exactly what's happening. It's why there's such a mental problem. They paint them as mad, as dangerous, don't listen to them. No one, well, it didn't bother me, but if you've been on that side for so long, certainly reading out the news, believing that your journalism's been getting to the truth, then of course you're not going to want to come out to the other side. But that's between you and your conscience. So I mean, what do we do? Do we just leave it and say, oh well, I don't want to admit it, I would rather cut my nose off to spite my bloody face, so what we'll do is we'll just forget about it and I'll just pretend it's not happening, because that is what people are doing. There's absolutely no two ways about that. And then you obviously put out that, I mean, this is where, again, the reason that this has been allowed to happen, for these police going to the door and asking that guy about that comment that he put in social media, is because it was so condoned during bloody COVID. I was saying it all the time during COVID, that people were quite happy for doctors to be closed down. Doctors that were obviously saying something that they didn't agree with, and not only did they not agree with it, it was actually triggering them. As I've said many times, that's your subconscious reminding you of your programming, which is not nice for anybody. I've been there. But the only way to break out of that is to face it and admit you were wrong. But this is when it began, because people were more than happy for that. Oh yeah, I'll agree with what you're saying. That's fine, as long as I agree with it. If I don't, and it actually triggers me, because my information is so at odds with it, or it's so at odds with my information, thus making me look a bit silly, which is something I actually got bored of during COVID, then that's it. I mean, where do we go from there? There's nothing else you can do about that. All you can do is bloody present the information. Once you present the information, it's up to them what they do with that. You don't need to believe it. You don't need to get angry. You don't. I mean, honest to God, like some of I'd seen people, not here, but I went to a freedom rally in Dumfries, and there was a guy in particular walked by, and the contempt he had in his eyes for the very few people that were standing there, me being one of them, was quite despicable. And I thought, go lock eyes with me and come over and look and say that to me, or say something to me, because you'll get schooled with information. But he obviously didn't. But that's where we're at. People are so angry, they don't want to hear it, and they don't want to hear the fact that immigration is hurting this country, and the divide and rule techniques that's been used, well, for centuries now, is still being used on us today, and we've not learned from it. See, they say that the reincarnation cycle is that you keep reincarnating here until you wake up to the true nature of who you really are, and you learn to love yourself and others. That's supposed to be the goal and the lesson of this planet. But so many people they're in this incarnation cycle of doing the same thing round and round and round and round, and never learning anything. So thus they keep coming back here. We keep coming back and round and round and round, and we don't learn anything, and we keep coming back, and that will continue as long as the planet spins. If you don't wake up and learn the true nature of who we are, why we're here and where we're bloody from, because until we've done that, we can't move forward. And this is why so many people can be divided and ruled, because we're so at odds with each other, because we've had so many different versions of the same thing. I mean, all the religions, they basically tell the same story because they all come from the Sumerian bloody texts, and they probably come from older things. And when you read them, and you read things like the Bible and the Quran, you can, or I've not read them all, but you've read passages from it, you can see that it's taken from the same bloody story, and it's just been used to divide. This is the thing, this information's been given to this side, and that another version's been given to that side, and they're both told it's the truth, so thus they clash, and they start fighting, and in the meantime, they're being ruled by the two people that have put that out there, or the people that's put that out there. And that's no different to it's what's happening in Britain right this second between Muslims and Christians. We've got Christian leaders saying that they don't want to leave their bloody churches and their homes. Muslim leaders are saying the same. We're all about to bloody start fighting with each other with machetes. And yet, people like King Charles has got the cheek to come out and say, well, oh, that's really well done. It's nice to see these left-wing people coming out in solidarity. I mean, honestly, like, that's just chucking more fuel onto it, and I'm telling you now, that man, he needs to be removed just as much as what Keir Starmer does, because they are all working together, and you're delusional if you think that they're not. And this is the thing as well, it's again, there's another couple of techniques involved, and I just want to go into. So creating or encouraging division, among the subjects to prevent alliances that could challenge the sovereign and distributing forces so that they overpower each other. Aiding and promoting those who are willing to cooperate with the sovereign, and fostering distrust and enmity between local rulers, encouraging meaningless expenditures that reduce the capability for political and military spending. So I've said that again there, because it's important. It's important that you hear that, because that again is exactly what's happening. And this is as old as countries, this type of stuff, because it's the way countries have been taken over. It's the way military alliances, past and present, have obviously been used, or been broken up, and they put out that disinformation. The same thing is happening in the Holy Land at the moment between Muslims and Christians and Jews. And they all use the same place. That tells you that it's all coming from the same bloody story. I mean, it's just absolute madness that and I said this. I see this in some videos that I see today as well. Just in comments, so many people. Oh, you need to open up your heart and be and thingy to Jesus or God or whatever. And it's like, you need to believe in yourself, mate. There's no one coming to save you. And the fact that you're out there fighting and arguing that there is, it just takes it into a new dimension of madness for me. Like, and in politics, the concept refers to a strategy that breaks up existing power structures, see if you recognise that, and especially prevents smaller power groups from linking up, causing rivalries and fomenting discord among the people to prevent a rebellion against the elites of the people implementing the strategy. It's what I've just said. The goal is either to pit the lower classes against themselves, that's happening, to prevent a revolution, or to provide a desired solution to the growing discord that strengthens the power elites. Both going on. Both are going on. Both are going on. And it all goes back to, like, I've got the book up there, The Art of War. Well, that's the Sun Tzu version, but there's Machiavellian versions as well, and this goes back to the 14, 15. In fact, that book goes back to probably prior to the Bible, actually. I think it's thousands of years old anyway, couple of thousand, whatever it is. And yet, I mean, that information's there, and no one really knows it. Like, I read it because I seen it on The Sopranos, so I did, and I thought, well, I don't know why, I thought I want to read that, because it's going to be beneficial, and it is. It's beneficial in your everyday life. And then this is it from foreign policy. Divide and rule can be used by states to weaken enemy military alliances, I've just said. This usually happens when propaganda or disinformation, misinformation too, are disseminated within the enemy states in an attempt to raise doubts about the alliance. Once the alliance weakens or dissolves, a vacuum will allow the hostile state to achieve military dominance. Those last three things I've just read out, that is exactly what is happening here. And like, as I said earlier on, the best example is probably in India, when the British started obviously sowing discord between them. But there's examples in Turkey as well, as I've said, Israel, it's happening there too. So it's a means to an end. It is an absolute means to an end. And then this is it from a colonial point of view. The manufacture of differences within the targeted population, it's been achieved. The amplification of existing differences it's been achieved, the use of these differences for the benefit of the colonial empire, the carryover of these differences into post-colonial period. So that's obviously from a colonial point of view, but they can still use it with, because well, we're being colonised, aren't we? We're being colonised by people that we're not right ready for at the moment, and to put it politely, that we don't really want here at the moment, not because we're racist, but because we've not got enough resources, and people are worried, people are scared, because fear is the currency of control. There's absolutely no bloody doubt about that. I'm sure you'll all agree. And there's a thing that, just before I go, that I would like to obviously read out. It was John Lennon that said it, and it's absolutely it's spot on. It really is. Our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends, and I think I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. That's what's insane about it. And these maniacs are they. That's the they in the title. And I've obviously spoken briefly about them before. I've done a little video on it with regards to the gods that they worship and still worship to this day. And once you understand that, you'll realise that the reason that this world has been in a state of conflict certainly since I was born, and certainly since I've asked any of my family members or anyone I've ever asked of any age, if there's ever not been a war when they've been alive, and they've obviously had to say no to that. That's why, and I've obviously explained in that previous video as to why they would want a world like that. If you want to watch that, it's there just now. It's the one with the 4 dragons at the Square Mile in London on it. And yet, that's the thing, like, we're a dystopian society. See, this is the thing, this is what they want. They want a dystopian society, and they'll use their Hegelian dialect to get that. And if you need any evidence that they want that dystopian society, go and have a look at the bloody Paris Olympics closing ceremony. I mean, that'll blow your mind what they've done there, and even Sky News are calling it dystopian, because, and you say, well, why would they want to do that? Because they want a dystopian world, and this is all just a means to an end to that. And then once that's been achieved, microchips will become mandatory, and that'll be it. You will officially have gave up your consciousness then, which I don't recommend you do. And that's sort of where we're at the moment. That's kind of a good parting shot to say goodbye on, because that is the end goal here. That is what they want. It's why these people are being moved into this bloody country, into a super city, because people will say, well, there's not enough room for everyone here. Well, but they're not bothered about that. In fact, the more crammed in they are, the better. That's why the Nazis did what they did to the Jews, because it was all part of them breaking them down. And if you've ever been in a crowded house, you'll see that it can get, tensions can boil, like, because everyone needs their space. So that's another thing. So it's just systematically breaking down the human mind, so they'll eventually engineer the consent out of you to say, well, I said this to my mum last week with digital currencies and all the rest of it, and how they want to bring in this dystopian world. By the time they're done here with all this stuff that's going on, if we don't get hold of our own minds, they're going to have people begging for it. Just whatever you do, just make it stop. Just make it stop, and I'll agree to whatever it is you want me to agree with. Just please make it stop. And they will make it stop as soon as you've got their consent, and everything will be fine, because they've got the consent and they've got the world that they want. You'll soon see it's not the world that you desired, but it won't matter at that point, and that is the point here. That's why people like me and anyone else out there, if you're thinking about doing this stuff and you maybe know a wee bit about a subject or whatever, you feel you've really got something to say on it, you need to say it. Don't worry about what anybody thinks about it either, because at the end of the day, I mean, we're really going to go to the end of the line with this, I think. I mean, I thought everyone, when COVID hit and then the vaccine came out after that, and I won't say any more than that at the moment because I don't want the video to get striked, but once that had happened, I thought, no, that'll be the one that breaks everybody up, or wakes everybody up, sorry. It didn't. It got worse. People reverted further into, obviously, denial. Maybe they're coming back out of that now when they can see the droves of people that are coming into the country. See, again, even that action is stirring up the anger in people, because he's stirring up one side to anger the other. And then the other gets really, really angry because they're scared, and then they come out and, well, we don't want you here. It then triggers the other side that they're saying that to, in this case the Muslim people, to then say, well, actually we need to defend ourselves. And again, these puppet masters are in the middle, pulling the strings. That's what happens when we divide, they rule, people. Thank you very much for joining me on this video. I'll see you on the next one. Actually, just before I go, I'm going to try and get a live stream done this week. I'm not going to schedule it because there's no point, because I need to schedule another one anyway because it never loads up. So I'll just go straight live and wait for people to join the video. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.